Staying busy, the cheapest medicine in the world, yet also the most fragile for the soul. There is a widespread misconception that people break down, fall into depression, or lose their way primarily because of overwhelming pressure, too much work, or crushing life burdens. In reality, the opposite is often true. Most mental descents do not begin with an excess of tasks, but with the sudden moment when a person finds themselves with nothing concrete left to hold on to. When a day loses its structure, when there are no more schedules, deadlines, or even small errands demanding attention, the human mind refuses to stay still. It behaves like a wild animal without a cage. It immediately starts generating its own stories. And unfortunately, the human brain is rarely a neutral or gentle companion. Without a clear, tangible goal in front of it, the mind automatically turns backward to dig up old wounds, words left unsaid, missed opportunities, moments of failure, or it races forward into the future, painting the darkest possible scenarios: unemployment, loneliness, illness, abandonment. Both journeys, regret and anxiety, require no external trigger whatsoever. All they need is empty time, a moment of silence, and the pain begins to multiply on its own. That is why we often notice a very familiar phenomenon. The heaviest worries rarely appear while we are immersed in work, when our hands and minds are fully occupied with the task at hand. They tend to strike during the emptiest moments, late at night when the house is asleep, long Sunday afternoons that stretch forever, vacation days with no plan, or transitional periods when everything suddenly feels suspended. It is not that the problems have suddenly become more serious in those exact moments. It is simply that there is no action, no matter how small, left to anchor the mind, to keep it tethered to the present. In such moments, staying busy becomes one of the most powerful and inexpensive survival tools a person can give themselves. It requires no doctor, no expensive prescription, no deep knowledge of psychology or philosophy. All it asks is that you keep moving, keep filling the hours with concrete tasks, whether it's cleaning the house, answering emails, exercising, learning a new skill, or even just walking around the block. As long as there is something to do, the brain immediately finds an anchor, sequence, priority, a sense of progress, however tiny, and a minimal feeling of control over the flow of time. And very often, that alone is enough to prevent a person from falling freely into the abyss of self-destructive thoughts. At this level, busyness is not cowardice or avoidance. It is genuine first aid, the most accessible, immediate safety net that keeps the soul from shattering right then and there. It buys time to breathe, to recover, to gather just enough strength before facing deeper, more painful questions. Yet precisely because of its near-instant effectiveness, busyness carries a hidden danger, one so subtle that many people do not recognize it until it is too late. When first aid becomes the only way of life, when a person gradually loses the ability to tolerate doing nothing at all, when even a few minutes of stillness cause the heart to race with unease, when silence begins to feel more threatening than noise, at that point, busyness stops being a helper. It turns into a form of mental addiction, a defense mechanism that postpones, perhaps indefinitely, the inevitable encounter with oneself. Busyness itself is not dangerous. What is truly dangerous is when we lose the capacity to sit still, to be alone with ourselves without needing to create distractions. At that stage, we are no longer living through action. We are living through escape. We no longer face pain, fear, emptiness, or the big questions about the meaning of life. Instead, we keep running from them under layers upon layers of tasks, endless to-do lists, and perpetual motion. Busyness can keep us from collapsing for a while, but only when we dare to stop, when we allow everything to settle, when we sit quietly without reaching for the phone, without turning on music, without doing anything at all. Only then do we truly discover what we have been trying so desperately not to think about, what we have been running from all this time. Staying busy is the cheapest medicine in the world, capable of carrying us through the darkest days. But real healing begins the moment we learn how to be still, not to run away, not to fill the void, but simply to listen, to feel, to be fully present with ourselves in this very moment, no matter how painful, how empty, or how peaceful that moment may be. Because in the end, we cannot run forever on the legs of constant doing. We only truly live when we have the courage to stop, and finally meet the real person beneath all the motion, without masks, without distractions, without escape.